U.S. troops will move from Italy, and some F-35s will be moved into the Baltic states. Biden also announced sanctions to target Putin's cronies, oligarchs and their families. He said it is just the first tranche, suggesting Putin can avoid more if he halts this invasion.
In response to the invasion, Germany is pulling their approval of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. The pipeline would transport Russian gas across Eastern Europe and into Germany. A Texas congressman says it's essential that Republican lawmakers stop voting to fund tyranny. AFN's Chad Groening reports.
Last week, an amendment to defund all COVID mandates failed. Many Republicans voted for the continuing resolution to keep the government running, despite the effort by Senator Mike Lee of Utah and Representative Chip Roy of Texas to remove funding for COVID mandates, which are very unpopular with the majority of Americans. Roy says the Founding Fathers gave Congress the power of the purse for a reason.
We have the power of the purse, so we should darn well use it. And by use it, I mean every time we vote to fund the government, through appropriations, through an omnibus, or through a continuing resolution, we should ask ourselves the question, what form of tyranny are we funding by supporting this?
Roy admits it's going to take time to fix this.
I'm not saying you can fix the entire beast at once, but we ought to be seeking to dismantle the bureaucratic, tyrannical state every single chance we can when we're funding government. I don't believe that we should be voting to fund the government that is enforcing mandates on the American people, forcing them to lose their job if they don't take a jab. I think that's wrong. I think it's misguided. And I'm tired of excuses out of Republicans who want cover votes instead of actually accomplishing something.
Roy says the inability of this Congress to act makes it all the more important to clean house in the midterm elections this fall. I'm Chad Groening.
The Biden administration is delaying decisions on new oil and gas drilling on federal lands and other emergency-related actions after a federal court blocked the way Biden officials calculated the alleged dangers of carbon dioxide emissions to the climate. In a February 11th ruling, U.S. District Judge James Kane of the Western District of Louisiana blocked federal agencies from using an estimate known as the social cost of carbon to assess pollution from carbon emissions by energy-producing and other industrial sources. The decision blocked the Biden administration from using a higher estimate for the damage each additional ton of greenhouse gas so-called pollution causes society. President Biden, on his first day in office, restored the climate cost estimate to about $51 per ton of carbon dioxide emissions after President Trump had reduced the figure to about $7. Trump's estimate included damages only felt in the U.S., Obama's figures including alleged damage to the entire globe. Portland, Oregon police have identified the man who committed a mass shooting at a park over the weekend. Here's Fox's Jessica Rosenthal.
Portland police say 43-year-old Benjamin Smith opened fire at Normandale Park on Saturday as a rally was beginning to protest police shootings. One woman was killed and 4 others were injured. One of the protesters who was armed opened fire on Smith, injuring him. He's still in the hospital. Police have searched his home for weapons and electronic devices. Charges haven't been officially filed yet, but the U.S. Attorney's Office said the FBI was involved and federal charges were possible too. Smith's family members and roommate told the Oregonian newspaper that he would often rant about Black Lives Matter protests and the homeless in his neighborhood. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
War is worrying investors already wary of President Biden's supply chain crisis. The Dow dropped 483 points on Tuesday. The Nasdaq fell 167, and the S&P 500 lost 44 points. For American Family News, I'm Steve Jordahl.
Friendships is looking for full-time volunteer men and women who are serious about serving God, investing time in rewarding work, and helping people in need around the world. There is no charge to serve. Room and board are provided. A willing heart and a desire to work as part of a team are the primary skills required. Check out the opportunities at friendships.org or email portmercy@friendships.org. That's portmercy@friendships.org.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Hamilton Quarter here on American Family Radio. I'm your host, Abraham Hamilton III, here live and direct in studio with the full Corner crew. Because you know they make it do what it do, baby. Ready to provide today's edition of the program. I am ready to rock and roll. I missed being with you guys live yesterday. I have a lot to get to during today's program. But before I do, at this very moment, many of you are making that transition, the daily transition from your part-time jobs where you generate an income to your full-time jobs where you cultivate an outcome. As you are doing so, may I encourage you to do so with full intentionality, understanding that what goes on in your house is far more important than what goes on in the White House. Even when the White House's missteps all along the way just so happen to encourage Vladimir Putin. We'll get to it. We're going to get to it. What goes on your house is still far more important than what goes on in the White House. Before there was an order of prophets, an order of priests, before the New Testament, ecclesiastical church, before any monarchies, before the establishment of a formalized civil government, the first institution that God created was the family. The first command that God issued to mankind was issued within the context of the family. The reality is, in order to truly embrace God's delegation of authority to exercise dominion over his created order, mankind was invited to embrace God's view of family. It shouldn't be surprising to us that the most impactful relationships in any of our lives begin in and through what occurs or what does not occur right in our homes. It's not a coinky-dink that the entire mental health profession, no matter what the issue may be, with all of the diagnoses available in the diagnostic and statistical manuals, mental health professionals always begin, tell me what your relationship was like with your father. No matter what the issues are, that's always where they begin. That's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. My brother, my sister, may I encourage you that as you're making this transition, and not to forget those of you who are doing it in the reverse, because I know I got a lot of people that hang out in the corner that work in the evenings. You know, I don't want to ignore you guys, but the majority of our listeners are transitioning to their full-time jobs now. As you make that transition, please understand that you are transitioning to operate at another level of, or another context, a primary context for ministry. Serving our families is ministry. I'm sorry I had to move my hat. I forgot about the lighting. I don't want the light to be dark. So, yeah, I just do this to make it easy for myself. All right. To the Word of God we go. Today we're going to go to Joshua chapter 24. Joshua chapter 24. I want to remind you, a lot of us are familiar with the popular verse in Joshua chapter 24, verse 15, where Joshua says, you know, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. But I want you to remember something. Before you ever got to chapter 24, you had chapter 23. Chapter 23 is addressed specifically to the leaders in Israel. Specifically to, as the scripture tells us, to its elders, its heads, its judges, its officers. To where Joshua really lays out some of the same things he does in chapter 24, where he walks through Yahweh's history of faithfulness regarding his people Israel and encourages them to resist the temptation to conform to the ways of the peoples of the nations that surrounded them and to nevertheless serve the Lord. Then you get to chapter 24. And again, we all know about verse 15, but I want to remind you about verse 14 because it's amazing. In the verses that precede verse 14 in chapter 24, Joshua provides this pronouncement, as the scripture says, to all the tribes of Israel, to Shechem, to the summoned leaders and to all the people. All right, so this is an address that's more broad than just to the leaders. And in verses 1 through 13, Joshua goes through again with all of the people the record of God's faithfulness, Yahweh's faithfulness, in providing for them from the deliverance from Egyptian slavery on into the promised land. And in verse 14, Joshua says this, quote, I'm sorry. Joshua says this in verse 14. Now, therefore, fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Look at this, guys. Put away those gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. Then verse 15 says, and if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods of your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Isn't it amazing that even in the face of Yahweh's historical record of faithfulness to these people, they still needed to be encouraged to reject their idols from beyond the river? That Joshua points out, yeah, your ancestors worshiped these false gods. When Joshua says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, he doesn't say so solely as an affirmative proclamation of what we will do. That is contrasted with the reality that there were still some people in Israel who were flirting with the pagan deities. That's sobering to consider. That's sobering to consider. And he reiterated again in verse 15. You decide whether you're going to still halt between these two opinions. And so then we come to, and I can sense our Heavenly Father's grief every time I read these kind of scriptures. It's almost like an epilogue, because this is noting the end of Joshua's life. I'm going to pick up at verse 29. I'm going to read all the way to the end of the chapter, which is verse 33. It's only only 4 verses. The word of God says this, verse 29. After these things, Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. And they buried him in his own inheritance at Timnath Serah, which is in the hill country of Ephraim, north of the mountain of Gaash. Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua and had known all the work that the Lord did for Israel. As for the bones of Joseph, which the people of Israel brought up from Egypt, they buried them at Shechem, in the piece of land that Jacob bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of money. It became, or it's 100 pieces of kesita in the original manuscripts. It became an inheritance of the descendants of Joseph. Verse 33. And Eleazar, the son of Aaron, died, and they buried him at Gibeah, the town of Phinehas, his son, which had been given him in the hill country of Ephraim. Now, when you read this, man, you see the scripture records that Joshua died at 110 years old. Then verse 31, oh, it grips me. The Lord records that Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua. All right. So these are elders who lived during Joshua's time of serving as Israel's leader and who outlived him thereafter. Okay. All of the elders who outlived Joshua and had known all the work that the Lord did for Israel. Now, do you notice something in that verse? God is doing 2 things in that verse. He is affirming the godly leadership of Joshua during his lifespan and the impact that it had on the Israelite people while Joshua was in leadership. He's also noting that Joshua's leadership impacted the quality of elders that outlived Joshua, but also observing that the Israelite people remained faithful to Yahweh until their lifespans ended. In fact, and I made a note to myself, Israel stayed faithful to the Lord all the years they had leaders who kept the Lord's historical faithfulness before them. The very last verse in this chapter confirms that notion because God pairs Joshua's passing with the passing of another faithful Yahweh worshiper, Eleazar. Look at verse 33 again. And Eleazar, the son of Aaron, died, and they buried him at Gibeah, the town of Phinehas' son, which had been given him in the hill country of Ephraim. The Lord is intentionally pairing Eleazar's passing with Joshua's passing because he's confirming. It's like an Old Testament version of verily, verily, right? He is affirming the notion that as long as Israel had leaders who kept Yahweh's historical record of faithfulness before them, that aided them in their present faithfulness. But you will note that this is the epilogue of the book of Joshua that leads into the entree of the book of Judges. The book of Judges really is a chronicle of the Israelite people apostatizing and then because of pain crying out to the Lord. But it was never because of a genuine heartfelt love for Yahweh that they worshiped him, endeavored to worship him in spirit and truth, so to speak. It was, we are getting whooped and we don't have any other hope. Lord, the God that our fathers told us about, will you help us? And then the Lord would come through. And then they would have a judge. But when that judge died, right back to the very old ways. You know, even the grand stories in the books of Esther and Nehemiah, it's amazing that Nehemiah even rightly points out that, you know, the Hebraic people were exiled to Babylon because of this sinfulness and rebellion. And the very end of the book, they return right back to it, even after Babylonian exile. Now, what point am I endeavoring to convey? Guys, in the face of uncertain domestic affairs, in the face of what can only be described as incompetent foreign policy, keep the record of Yahweh's historical faithfulness before your own eyes and before your family's eyes. There's a reason why the scripture in the New Testament says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. The blood of the Lamb overcoming source is how we secure that vertical and eternal overcoming. The word of our testimony is a source that our Lord uses to strengthen our brethren. We must keep the Lord's record of faithfulness before us, because what Satan likes to do is to present current difficulty and with his marketing department to make it seem like this is the biggest and worst problems that have ever problemed. When the reality is, what's big to God? You know, I'm thinking about that, you know, you got an army. Well, I got a Hulk, you know, in the Marvel's Avengers. You got an army, I got a Hulk. We have way more than a Hulk, guys. Even with the saber rattlings of things around the globe, even with the saber rattling of things happening around us, none of them can overwhelm the God in whom we trust. Let us keep the record of our God's faithfulness. As you confront issues, if you're blessed with young children in your home, don't just go it on your own. Present the issues before your children. Pray about them together. By doing so, you create an opportunity for your children to see, wait a minute, God will answer our prayers too. The young ones will get to see we're us crying out to the Lord as a family. We have this obstacle coming before us. Guys, very similar to Jehoshaphat, we have no other recourse but to trust in our God. Lord, would you help us in this area? And then when, not if, when God shows himself mighty, answering the prayer according to his will, you have the opportunity to say, see, guys, we prayed together about this, and look how God has answered our prayers. These are practical application tools to enable you to build faith in your home, to where it becomes more than just an individual enterprise, to where it becomes your familial heritage, that it is not only me who trusts in God, it is we who trust in God. And as we train our family how to pray, we are also training them how to receive answers to prayer.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge. But it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. Medishare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
I feel so hopeless.
Is there any hope? I just feel like there's no hope at all.
Is there any hope?
Get hope.
I approached this year's birthday with just a touch of unrest.
That's TWR President Lauren Libby.
I sensed a gap between expectations and the reality of experience. One Saturday morning, I listed the things I've been asking God for the past 15 years. And in a column beside each expectation, I wrote to what degree I had seen Jesus fulfill answers. Then, on my actual birthday, I talked to the Lord about these expectations, promises, and heart yearnings. As a result, the Lord gave me a sense of peace about my relationship with Him, my family, and relational expectations. Every physical birthday brings you and me closer to a final hope.
Need more hope? We have resources waiting for you, including a free devotional. You'll find them at gethoperadio.com. That's gethoperadio.com.
We are not allowed to have a U-Haul that comes to heaven with us.
Anna Marie Travers has an AFA Foundation charitable gift annuity.
The Lord has given us things that we can acquire, but everything will stay here, and I'm so thankful for the American Family Annuity Fund, where we can give some to something that we so highly value.
Through the AFA Foundation, a charitable gift annuity provides a monthly income as well as a legacy of support for the American Family Association.
I cannot recommend a better person than they have at AFA to help you with getting your annuity fund. It was so easy.
Call the AFA Foundation today to find out how you can set up a charitable gift annuity. Just call 800-326-4543, extension 345.
Shining light into the darkness. This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner. Guys, it is time. You've heard me discuss this before. Many of the listeners have attended. The Marriage Family Life Conference is upon us. The Marriage Family Life Conference 2022 will be July 7th through the 9th at the Bancorp South Arena in Tupelo, Mississippi. Registration is open now, and I would encourage you, if you are inclined, you want to come, I would encourage you to register early. Some of you said last year, I'm going to do it. And the next thing you know, sold out. This year it's at the Bancorp South Arena. Register today. Yeah, so that's done. That's why I ain't mentioning that. Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right. You can go to register at marriagefamilylife.net. Marriagefamilylife.net. It is going to be phenomenal. I mean, I know I've said that in the past. Guys, it is going to be phenomenal. As we get closer, I'm going to talk more about speakers who will be there. I'm on the website right now. We have a robust offering for your children. If you've been there in the past, you already know what time it is, Chief. Marriage Family Life Conference 2022 is here. Go to marriagefamilylife.net to register. You'll be hearing more about this. I'm going to talk about it a lot more. I'm going to have some guests on the program to discuss this conference. I kid you not. I believe that this is probably, and of course you might say I'm biased, which I am, but I'm really trying to be objective. I think this is one of, if not the best, family preparation conferences that are available. We hear the The middle name of our name is American Family Association, American Family Radio. We are truly committed to equipping the Lord's bride to stand, the entire family to stand in this day and age. You know, I've said before, for too many instances, for too many reasons, we have lots of people within the American professing church that want to offer our children graham crackers and apple juice, while the world is giving them drag queen story hours and full-on sex ed courses using pizza to describe their favorite preferences. You know, you can't share a pizza until you know what toppings your friend would like. The same thing with physical intimacy. I'm like, man, come on. You have Teen Vogue providing how-to manuals for things that the Lord called abominable. We can't desire to live in a world as we wish it was. We have to face the reality of the times that we are living in. You and your children need to be equipped, not to just survive, but to stand and be effective ambassadors of Jesus the Christ in this day and age. The Marriage Family Life Conference is a great opportunity for you to do that. I'll never forget, I talked to some people last year at the conference. One brother who was an immigrant from Africa who lived in the Dallas, Texas area, moved to the Texas area. He said, man, I'd never heard of apologetics until I came to this conference, let alone had any idea of how to prepare my children with these things. And so the conference provided him a springboard into being able to offer his children and his family what they desperately need to be able to stand in this time. So marriagefamilylife.net is the website. Registration is available now. Get in where you fit in, because if you wait too long, it's going to be like those outside of the ark. Now, it's not that drastic. I probably should have used a better example. But as the old song, I don't even remember who sings it. I hear you knocking, but you can't come in. You don't want to be on the outside knocking, but you can't come in. marriagefamilylife.net is where you go to register. All right. And listen, if you've been to the conference and you have family members and friends that you want to encourage to come, you already know what to do. Go ahead and let them know registration is available. All right. I got a lot to say today. Oh, my God. If you haven't noticed it yet, if you weren't aware of it, well, it's not that you haven't noticed it yet. Today, the White House announced that they regard the hostile actions of Vladimir Putin and Russia moving their troops into eastern Ukraine as an invasion of the Ukraine. Now, before I get too far into that, that's very amazing to me, but they don't use that same terminology to describe what's happening on our southern border. Very interesting. I understand it's not formalized troops, but what else do you call what's going on our southern border? Oh, I guess you really can't call it an invasion if you are saying, hey, come on, y'all come now, you hear? Back to Ukraine. All right. Y'all know, I have to do this because for too many instances, too frequently, we are casualties of short memories. I'm going to take you back to about, 2011, 2012, about 2012, where we had, I think it was the 44th president of the United States at the time, who was campaigning for a second term, and he had an interview session with the then president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev. And there was a salient revelation caught on an open mic when the then president, none other than Mr. Barack Hussein Obama, was caught telling Dmitry Medvedev, well, this is my last election. I quote, this is my last election. After my election, I'll have more flexibility. Transmit that to Vladimir. Do you guys recall that time? Mm-hmm. Well, just in case you didn't, I got the audio for you. Feast your ears on this blast from the past when then incumbent President Barack Obama was campaigning for the 2012 presidential election. Listen to this in clip number 1. Go.
My last election, yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and understand with me.
Now, the audio wasn't as clear as I would have liked it to have been because the mics were turned off. It happened to be mics surrounding them, not them talking directly into the microphones, that caught that little tete-a-tete. Barack Obama told then President of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, because everybody knew Medvedev's position as president of Russia was just a placeholder. Everybody knew Putin was running the show. And as soon Putin was president before, he let Medvedev hang out for a little bit, and then Putin was coming right back. Everybody knew this. And he said, this is my last election. Let me get through my election, and then I'll have more flexibility. And what's amazing to me, not very many people in our media, because they were so enthralled with smooth cat daddy. Look at he's so smooth. Look at his walk. They're so enthralled. Not many of them sought to follow him and say, I wonder what kind of flexibility he's talking about that he's going to have after the election. What is it that you want to do with old Vlad after the election that you can't do before? And remember, do you guys remember? This is after the previous, and I played this audio for you before. I told you this when Mittens Romney put him up, was asked a question during the debate, and this is in 2008, about the existential threat from a foreign nation state, and Romney said Russia. And Smooth Cat Daddy mocked him. The 1980s have called. They like their foreign policy back. In the whole world, everybody, the 1980s would like their foreign policy back. Let me be clear. The whole world laughed, man. Then she shall never be president. Remember, she hit her reset button. Y'all remember all? Listen. Listen, you can't be cat victims of the moment. We have to have longer memories. Well, isn't it interesting, even with the lack of curiosity among the American media, in terms of what kind of flexibility would Vladimir Putin be requiring of Mr. Obama that he cannot respond to prior to his election? But hey, once he gets elected, I ain't got to get elected no more. We can partay. Isn't it amazing that soon after Mr. Obama was reelected in 2012, stuff started popping off in Ukraine in 2013? Y'all remember that? Those pop-offs culminated in the Russian invasion and confiscation from another sovereign nation of the Crimea region. Do y'all remember that? Russia just took it. Do you remember anybody asking all of these questions and any of these things? And not a whole lot of like is going on right now. So after Obama said, make sure you transmit to Vladimir. And then remember Medvedev's response, I will transmit this to Vladimir. That's what he said. I will transmit this to Vladimir. Soon after his transmission to Vladimir, Putin is rolling up in Crimea. Former President Trump comes in. The whole world thought, Lil Kim, what they call him, was going to pop firecrackers from North Korea. Didn't happen. Lil Kim, what they call him. Y'all know Kim Jong, Lil Kim, the only fat man in North Korea. the formerly only fat man in North Korea. I'm sorry, y'all. Then, when Mr. Trump is in office, nothing. No aggression against Ukraine, nothing. He might have been doing some things behind the scenes with like KGB type stuff, clandestine type stuff, but no formal assertion of force. Then we have, y'all remember this in 2020? Well, before we even get to 2020, in spite of all that history I just laid out for you, let Vladimir know after my election, have more flexibility, reset with Russia. Amazingly, now that we know, with the aid and assist from the campaign of She Shall Never Be President, full-on funded spying effort compounded by the entire federal governmental apparatus employing a special counsel to the tune of $30 to $50 million in 3 years to investigate Mr. Trump about Russia. But nobody said anything about, after my election, I have more flexibility. And then, Crimea. Just a coincidence. Nothing to see here. Then you get to the 2020 presidential campaign, and you have Mr. No Malarkey himself, Mr. Poor Kids are just as smart as white kids. Mr. the first clean and intelligent black man he's ever seen in office. It's a dream, man. Guys, y'all, look it up. Biden said all of this. On the campaign trail, he hit us with this ditty that certainly does not and did not age well. This is from January 25th, 2000. I'm sorry, that's not the right date. This is from the 2020 campaign trail. Listen to Mr. Biden then. Clip 2, go.
Because Putin knows if I am president of the United States, his days of tyranny and trying to intimidate the United States and those in Eastern Europe are over. I'm going to stand up to him. He's a bully, just like the president. And I know he doesn't want me to be president, but to tell you what, when I'm president, things are going to change.
Oh, that's the only thing in that entire comment that I agree with. When you're president, things are going to change. Oh, change they sure did. So 2012, I got one more election, Barack Obama. After my election, I have more flexibility. 2013 leading to 2014, in March 2014 to be specific, Russia takes Crimea. President Trump comes in, nada, nothing. 9, zilch, 0. Mr. Joseph Robinette Biden is in office for a little over a year. Vladimir Putin is announcing, I'm taking these eastern portions of Ukraine. Does anybody else notice a pattern there? Are we going to ask the question, I wonder why Putin didn't try to take Ukraine or portions of Ukraine when Mr. Trump was in office? I wonder what were some of the differences there. Very interesting. I wonder what kind of things happened between Obama and Biden that caused Putin to not try to make a move, because what you clearly should see at this point, Putin is very interested in resurrecting the former Soviet Union. If you haven't noticed that yet. So I wonder what kind of things that might have encouraged Mr. Putin to make this move. I don't know. Maybe let's take a guess. Afghanistan, anyone? You have Americans who are left in the country where the Bagram Air Force Base, which you want to know, the Bagram Airport, you want to know who built that? You did, the American taxpayer, with one of the longest runways in the region. It's very close to where China tends to build their nuclear weapons. Interesting. And you have American intelligence lost to the Taliban. I mean, these cats are zealous, but I mean, they're running around in slides, flip-flops. And you have American people there and that you leave behind, which, oh, by the way, there are still Americans in Afghanistan right now. And yet the Biden administration comes out and says, every American that wanted to leave is out? Really? How about this one? You reverse the opposition from the Trump administration to allow the construction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, to allow Russia to become the dominant provider of oil and natural gas to Eastern Europe. Instead of opposing that, you allow that to continue. And at the exact same time, you reverse the status in our own country that had the United States to be a net exporter of energy, oil, and natural gas. And now we become dependent. You don't want to miss the rest of this show.
AFR programming is now available on Alexa.
You're joking, right?
Nope, not joking.
Seriously?
Yep, this is not a drill.
Wait a minute. No way.
There's a way. The Alexa way. So if you just happen to miss your favorite shows, no worries. You can now listen to each podcast with Alexa. It's simple and it's free. Just visit afr.net/apps and click Alexa. We're not joking.
Hello, I'm Sam Rohr, president of the American Pastors Network, a growing national network of pastors committed to the authority of Scripture and preaching the whole counsel of God. We believe biblical obedience is the foundation for revival, and impacting our culture for Christ is our duty. For too long, the pulpits of America have been silent on the important issues such as marriage and family and assault on our liberty. Join us in the battle for truth on Stand in the Gap weekend, Sunday evenings at 6 p.m. on American Family Radio, and visit us at AmericanPastorsNetwork.org.
The following are real-life stories from Trinity Debt Management.
My story begins with debt, a lot of debt. I used my credit cards as a source of income.
It was not a good situation.
I couldn't pay my bills.
The interest on the cards was really high.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
I initially was scared to call, and immediately I felt relief.
They contacted all of our creditors, and they put us on a plan for success.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
I've been able to pay off close to $15,000.
We're doing a lot better. Please pick up the phone and see how affordable and easy it is to pay off your debt.
It's a godsend.
We're debt-free for keeps.
Call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813. That's 1-800-788-1813.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Stearns. Stand by for news and commentary next. Are you looking for a university that provides a quality Christian education with excellent academic and athletic programs? Well, I want to invite you to visit Liberty University, where they offer multiple visiting opportunities to fit your schedule. Plan a visit to their Central Virginia campus and stay for an afternoon, a day, or an entire weekend. You can also take a virtual tour from the comfort of your own home. Plan your visit today by texting Go Visit to the number 49596. Again, that's Go Visit to the number 49596. Bob had a rough childhood. His dad was an alcoholic. He remembered seeing his dad one morning passed out under the Christmas tree. That moment had a profound impact on Bob, so much so that when he grew up and bought his own house, Bob decided to turn it into a winter wonderland. Christmas lights and Santa Claus decorations galore. Bob always grumbled about the electricity bill, but he kept putting up those decorations. It's all for the kids. That's what Bob used to say. Bob Beckel died the other day. He was 73. He was a longtime fixture on Fox News Channel, my work colleague for a number of years. Bob was an old-school liberal. His politics were out in left field. He loved this nation. He loved a good political fight. But after the television lights were turned off, he was glad to pal around with many of us on the conservative side. Something of a lost art in today's polarized world. Bob Beckel will be missed. I'm Todd Stearns.
The Hamilton Quarter podcast and one-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Quarter on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner. I'm just talking to you about the things that precipitated where we are on the global front. So you kill domestic oil production on federal lands here. You've killed the Keystone pipeline. One of the first things he does here, under former President Trump, America became a net exporter of energy after having been dependent for for decades. And guess what that does? That strengthens Russia's stronghold on the European region, because Russia's sole their main export really is energy, oil, natural gas to Eastern Europe. That's what the Nord Stream pipeline was for. President Trump said, no, you ain't building that. Mr. Biden says, sure, go ahead, right away. And this is something that you guys may not be aware of. It may not be obviously known to you. When the Biden administration turned off the spigots of our natural gas production here domestically in our country, using our resources, you want to know where America bought its oil from in 2021? Y'all want to know? You really want to know? Russia. So you see these things that are transpiring, they're not dissuading Putin from doing anything. He's being encouraged, emboldened by this. Not to mention, and I'm not saying this to be mean, I'm just telling you straight up. If you have a man who's supposed to serve as the head of the free world, the leader of the free world, and he can't remember his own name from time to time, he gets in front of major global conferences, G20, G8, G7s, what you name it, and he's blah, 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 blah. Emboldens the man, and it's just, again, it's remarkable. All of the 3 years of the Mueller investigation, Russia under Trump, when Biden does all of these things that are beneficial to Russia, and nobody says a word. Guys, Putin ain't changed. She's been wanting to do this for the longest. For the longest. And I truly hope that, because I know there are many who listen to the program that are Biden supporters, that I hope you can be objective in your assessing what has transpired here. All of these things contributed to Putin's emboldening. It shouldn't be lost on us that tomorrow marks a significant anniversary for the Russians. And Putin had the audacity to say in his speech on Monday, oh, yeah, we have a historical claim to Ukraine. And these areas in the Ukraine that we're going to just recognize their independence. We're just going to send our troops in there to protect the peace there. Really? To protect the peace? And what I'm saying is that these various events emboldened this dude. I mean, I want to play that audio again. He said when he was campaigning, oh, Putin don't want me to be president because, when I get in, a new sheriff is in town. It's like, could have fooled me. Go ahead and play it one more time, Bobby. Clip 2. You got it? I'm bystanding. Listen to this, guys.
Because Putin knows if I am president of the United States, his days of tyranny and trying to intimidate the United States and those in Eastern Europe are over. I'm going to stand up to him. He's a bully, just like the president. And I know he doesn't want me to be president, but to tell you what, when I'm president, things are going to change.
Things are going to change, all right. and I am not in any way saying that we need to have American soldiers to go to Ukraine or nothing like that. But guys, this is the United States of America. There are a host of things we can do to oppose Putin's efforts to reconstitute the USSR. Here's one, just shooting from the hip. Not really. How about today, not tomorrow, today, you reopen domestic drilling for oil and natural gas, and you reposition the U.S. to be the number one to be a net exporter of energy in the world. Because just today, Germany announced, why are they so late to the party? I don't know. This is why former President Trump was so hot with Germany, saying that, wait, you want us to protect y'all from Russia, but you want to go strike a deal with Russia to build a pipeline to provide oil for y'all? Nah, bump that. We got oil. We going to sell y'all the oil. But when Biden comes in, he shuts down the Keystone XL pipeline, shuts down domestic drilling, shuts down our exportation of energy resources. And so, you know how Putin responded today? I wish you would, Germany. Talking about you not gonna take my Nord Stream 2 pipeline? Well, the price just went up for the energy resources because Russia provides energy resources to Europe, Eastern Europe. You know what we could do to interrupt that? Hey, Germany, you ain't got to buy from Vlad. You can buy from us. We have all kinds of shale and resources. Guess what that would do to Putin's income flow? Ladies and gentlemen, it will cut it off. In addition to the proclamation of all of these other sanctions and things of that nature, you know what? We will provide Eastern Europe with the energy resources that they need because we got beaucoup. That's a New Orleanian term. That's French for a lot. Beaucoup is the right way to say it. But we say beaucoup. We have beaucoup resources. But no, he's not going to do that. And they're going to say, oh, because we have to protect the spotted owl. We have these leaping lemurs that must be protected. So we can't drill in the
This is Ultimate Dodgeball.
on our royal soil. That's one thing that can be done today. We can say, Europe, y'all don't have to worry about getting your energy supplies from Russia because we all need to agree that this cat, he's feeling froggy, so he's leaping. 2014, he's going to take Crimea. Now 2022, you're going to take Donbas and eat parts of eastern Ukraine. Well, where is he going to stop? I got a little news flash for you. It's not. It's going to have to be stopped. And these are things that can be done without firing a shot. We don't have to send soldiers. We don't have to send arms. We don't have to have our troops on the ground. We can do this by cutting off the financial resources. How quickly do you think it would be that the European countries now who are just playing footsie with Putin, oh, yeah, we'll let you build your pipeline and everything will be fine, right? And now they realize, I'm like, duh, Germany, you just realized that Putin is a gangster? You just realized that? Like, how dumb? I mean, I know regressivism is a mental disorder, but you're gonna hitch your energy supply wagon to Russia? This is craziness. But if you really want to respond to it, that's an easy answer today. We don't have to wait till tomorrow. Do you guys realize, and just to kind of put this in perspective, oil, the price per barrel, the day President Trump left office, do you remember how much it was? Or should I say how little it cost? It was $40 a barrel. Do you remember that the national average for gas is right at about $1.86 per gallon? Now, there's speculation that oil could surge up to $150 per barrel. This is crazy, guys. This is crazy. I'm going to open the phone lines. I have a few minutes left. I have so much more I wanted to say. I didn't realize it was this late. Marty's looking at me like, hey, we going to open the phone lines? If you guys want to talk to me about this issue, you're welcome to call. The number is 888-589-8840. The number is 888-589-8840. I mean, an immediate pressure release valve would be Americans to supply the energy resources that the European nations would need. And we agree with the European nations to cut off the spigot to Putin. I mean, I know he's got resources and he's wealthy and all of that kind of stuff, but you can't wage a war for long if you don't have money coming in. And your primary resource is energy resources. And you have these other countries that can say, oh, I can get that from the Americans. And don't you guys feel all warm and fuzzy because didn't Mr. Biden say he was going to reestablish America's reputation in the global community? I know it's cute and all, to get into these things and, Biden is nicer than Trump and all this kind of stuff. But guys, there's gangsters in this world. Look, they're not here. They out here. There's gangsters out here. Can you imagine Putin's response? He's like, these Americans are crazy. They let this guy get in the Oval Office. This guy with his son with the. Let me ask y'all this question. Do you think Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping were surprised to learn about Hunter Biden's crack cocaine affinity and his illicit lifestyle? You think they were surprised by that? Guys, we've got to wake up, man. We've got to wake up. Again, if you want to join the show, the number is 888-589-8840. I didn't even get to the CDC's tepid acknowledgement that, see, what had happened was a New York Times reporter found out that even though the CDC was collecting all sorts of data on COVID testing and how things are impacting various demographic groups. They intentionally concealed specific evidence that showed that people under 50 didn't need to get booster shots. They had the data and didn't release the data. Then the CDC just let it slip out just here recently. Oh, yeah, we didn't release that data. Well, why would you hide the data? Oh, of course, because you want to make sure that the narrative concerning the boosters continue. And this is just another thing, guys. If you're wondering, this is how a global superpower implodes. You have bungling foreign affairs. You have the internal executive apparatus and governmental apparatus no longer trusted by the American people. I mean, do you really in this day and age, after learning that the FBI and the CIA were pawns or tools, I should say, in an effort to spy on the sitting president of the United States? That you had Kevin Kleinsmith, who literally lied on the FBI. I mean, lied to the FBI about the CIA. And they put these lies in search warrant requests before the FISA court. And we know that there is evidence that these players, not the courts, but players knew that the She Should Never Be President campaign is paying for all of this information. And is presenting it as if, oh yeah, this really happened. This has really happened. Do you have confidence in these alphabet agencies, the FBI, the CIA? The CDC has evidence that contradicts their own narrative, but they don't give it to the American people. That sure doesn't make me feel confident that they have the American people's best interest in mind. If you're wondering how these things happen, you're witnessing it right now. To the phone lines we go. We'll start in Arkansas, where Bobby is on the line. Bobby, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for taking my call. I just watched this happening, and I think I should write a book about how to bring the most awesome country in the world down and just go and take Biden's plan and everything he's done. And, in other words, that's already 5 chapters, and just thought I'd share that with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything that I see that's happened is detrimental to America.
You're right about it, Bobby. Thank you for your call and your comments. I mean, this is. I mean, especially on the big items. And again, there's a lot of attention and focus on what's going on in Ukraine, and Biden wants to send 3,000 troops to Ukraine. What about our southern border? The highest number in a single year of illegal aliens apprehended attempting to enter our country illegally. And those are the ones who were caught. In excess of 2 million. A 238% increase over 2020. The press is occurring on all sides. And I've described this as the application of the Cloward Piven strategy just on a broader scope, and it's happening. But now I think a lot of people are realizing, oh, this is not just fun and games, who's nicer, who likes ice cream, but the decisions that we make actually do have real world consequences.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or